Today we are going to talk about mast placement and how to find the perfect sweet spot. Let's go. Thanks so much for joining us. Today we are going to talk about mast placement because this is a question that I get all the time through the comments in the videos, at the shop, Wingfoil Pro Center, and when I give lessons. And the truth is, there is not a right or wrong placement of the mast. It can vary, and so we just really need to understand the principle of how to find this. And this sweet spot is gonna change from when you are a beginner, when you are learning, to as you are progressing, and of course as you change burn, you change foil, you change stabs, fuselage. It's always going to be a chase for that perfect spot. So we really need to understand, because you're going to have to do this process over and over as you during your foiling journey. So for this example, I have a beginner setup. This is the perfect package from AFS, the Access package, with the Fly 1 burl, with the Flyer foil, very easy, and with the Delight Boom wing. And this is pretty much my favorite package when it comes to learning. And so we are gonna first look at it from a beginner point of view. So the first thing we need to do is we can balance the position of your foil compared to your burn. And how we do this is every foil is gonna have a center of lift. It's pretty much a sweet spot that's pretty narrow, where let's say you could go out and ride and you could be right over that sweet spot and you would have a level flight. So it's pretty important to find this spot. Now what's challenging is, how do we know where that sweet spot is? And it can change. So for some like higher performance foils, sometimes the center of lift is further toward the trailing edge, and maybe for beginner foils that sweet spot is going to be closer toward the leading edge. So that is, again, can be hard to find. But for this setup, let's talk about this setup. The Flyer, the center of lift is closer to the leading edge. So what we would do is we would exactly lift the bird over that sweet spot, and if your bird is level, we know that setup is balanced. When I moved the mast all the way back, I found that the nose was staying down. When I moved it all the way forward, it was shooting up. So you can play around with this before you even go on the water. You play around, you try to find the position of the mast that's going to allow you to have a very straight horizontal bird when you start lifting. That's the first step, but it's not over from there. And what's gonna happen next is also very dependent on the rider. You can't really ask, in my opinion, it's still a good start, but if you ask someone, where do you place your mast, is that gonna be good for me? We don't know, because everybody has a slightly different technique, slightly different body preference on how much front foot, back foot pressure we need to have. So this is a self-discovery journey that you need to go through. So once you have that spot, you go in the water, and from a beginner perspective, if you are barely starting to fly, the feedback that we are looking for is, when you start flying, does the nose shoot up and you have hard time to control it and you fall? Basically, the foil started lifting and you didn't even really want to. If that's the case, what we need to do is we need to move the foil back. And sometime on the burn, you have some label. Here it's going to say light wind, strong wind. Some other birds are going to say less lift, more lift. In this case, we need less lift. So for here, strong wind, which is, again, we would need less lift for strong wind, and it's toward the back. So we move the foil toward the back. Next time we go on the water, it's not going to lift as early, and we're going to be more in control for a beginner. If on the other hand, you are out there on the water, you are trying to take off, and it's really not taking off, even though you have good speed, you are on plane, and then you really have to shift a lot of weight back to fly, and once you are flying, you find yourself all back leg and not much on the front leg. In this case, we need to move the foil forward so that without moving, you're gonna be a lot more balanced. Instead of shifting so much weight back, we move the foil forward, so now it's gonna lift a little sooner. You won't have to be so aggressive to make it go up. So that's the feedback. If the nose is shooting up too quickly, move your foil back. If you have to be really back leg to make it take off, move your foil forward. Then, as you are gonna progress, what we need to look at is to find the perfect mast placement for your bird. When you are bird on the water, you're gonna move your feet around. That's why I actually don't really like foot straps, because it makes you locked in and you don't feel as much. You are like forcing. Here we have to feel. Move your feet around, bird on the water. Where is the spot where you feel very comfortable, where your nose is not going under, where your nose is not shooting up. So you're gonna find that position on the bird before you even start flying. This is gonna be your sweet spot when your bird is on the water. Ideally, what we want is that when we take off, we don't have to move. That means that sweet spot of the bird is gonna be aligned with the sweet spot of the foil. So the feedback here is gonna be, once you take off, if you find yourself having to move your feet back, then we're gonna have to move the foil forward. The foil is gonna have to come meet you instead of you having to come meet the foil, meet the sweet spot of the foil. If as soon as you take off, you are like, whoa, I need to move forward, then we need to move the foil back. So you gotta get out there and you're gonna practice over and over until you are like, this is the perfect position for me when I stand on the bird. I'm taking off and I feel, once I'm on foil, I didn't have to move and I feel very balanced. I equally pressure front and back leg. We need to make sure we are at speed, because the takeoff phase is a bit of we have to get through that, because what happened is actually the sweet spot of the foil can slightly change on takeoff. On takeoff, we're going to feel a lot of front foot pressure, and that's just because we are like increasing the angle of attack. We need to kind of like counter that. Otherwise, if we don't counter that, it's going to go even more and it's going to stall. So at the takeoff, we don't have to worry that we are like more front foot. Where we need to really look at our feet when we are riding is once we are at speed. So we need to align our position from bird on the water to when we are flying correctly at speed. And what can change is our stance. If we have someone that has a really wide stance, someone that has a really narrow stance, someone that has offset stance, things can change. So I've seen two really good riders not having the same mast position, and they still ride both really well. And that's the proof that there is not a right or wrong mast placement. You really have to discover that for yourself. In terms of I briefly talked about the foot straps, but in my opinion, that's why riding strapless is very beneficial, because it's going to allow you to move, it's going to allow you to experiment, it's going to allow you to feel. And often putting a foot strap, even a front foot straps, is a way to numb that. I don't want to feel, I don't want to think about it, I want to put my foot there and I'm going to make it work. And in my opinion, you are missing out on really finding that comfortable spot and gaining experience feeling, not forcing. And foiling is a lot about feeling, not forcing. And in terms of like your stance, personally, I think a narrower stance is going to be more efficient. You're going to be closer to the sweet spot. And if you think the sweet spot is right here, when you have a really wide stance, you have a lot of leverage on both sides. And often people that have a wider stance are going to need a longer fuselage, maybe a bigger tail, because they have so much leverage to make it a stable flight. You're going to need that. So I recommend experimenting with narrowing your stance over the sweet spot. And offset, I do find that like offset side to side instead of like on the center line is going to allow you to have more control side to side, and it's going to be very beneficial when you are riding toe side. I'm going to show you a clip. This is how twisted you are when you are riding inline toe side. Doesn't feel comfortable. It's going to force you to have to switch feet, which is fine. But even for the switching feet process, if you want to watch my video on how to switch feet, I explain how it's much easier to switch feet when you are from an offset position and inline. And so once you are offset, you are a lot less twisted when you are riding toe side. So in my opinion, whether you are like carving, riding toe side, switching feet, riding offset has a lot of benefit. Another thing that's very interesting is that actually once you get it pretty close, once you get your mast position pretty close, you can really adapt by your feet position. It's not going to ruin your ride. So there's plenty of time. I go out with a new combo, a new foil with a new burn, and it's not quite right. But once I'm out there, do I really want to come back to shore, go back to the car, take the tools, waste a bunch of time, especially if I'm in a hurry? What I can just do is literally move my feet. Do I have enough room on the pad to move an inch or two forward or back? Probably, if I was pretty close from the start. So your mast position, you can get it really dialed in if it's a setup that you are used to. You're going to work toward it. If it's a new setup, it's not going to ruin your ride. You can move your feet and you have the same impact once you are up on foil. Once you are up on foil, whether you move your foil, your mast an inch forward, or you move your feet an inch back, you just had the same impact. You are not glued to the burn, your feet are not glued to the burn. So whether the foil meets you or you meet the foil, we have the same result. So don't overthink it. If you go out there and you are like, it's not right, but all of my friends are out there, it's firing, I'm having a great time, move your feet, you're gonna be fine. So that's it for the mast placement. You gotta play with it, you gotta experiment, and you gotta feel. That's the only way that you're gonna find the perfect placement. That trick that I showed you at the beginning, that's on paper and it's a good start, but from there you really gotta personalize your mast placement for you. So I hope that all of those tips are gonna make your ride better. Let me know in the comment if you have a trick that I didn't think of or that works for you to find the sweet spot. And get out there, have fun. It's all about enjoying the journey. If you are learning, welcome and hang in there, because it can be hard at the beginning, but it's worth it and it's the most fun thing ever. If you have any question, drop it in the comments. Reach out to me, wingfoilprocenter.com. All of the gear that I always display in the videos is available at wingfoilprocenter.com. I appreciate the support. This is how I can keep making videos for you guys, is because of the support that I get through the shop. So thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.